Hi, Richard here again, and I'd just like to follow up on some of the comments I made with regard to the Boeing contract that was voted up the other day on the blog. The video, also the article I put on there, and I made some comments on a previous video. And I was reading today, according to Reuters, there's been about 20 NLRB unfair labour practice claims filed, two of them against the company, against Boeing, by rank and file workers, two of them against Boeing for interfering with their right to vote by threatening to move the plant if they didn't vote the concessionary contract up, and the rest of them against their own international union leaders for calling a second vote and interfering and going above the local leadership and calling this second vote on a contract they'd already rejected when many of the, apparently, according to Reuters, many of the workers were away on vacation. About 10,000 fewer people voted on this contract that passed the other day than those that voted 2-to-1 majority against the contract a month earlier. So anyway, that's the situation they're in, and it's a positive thing that the rank and file is getting stirred up in this way, but we need to look at it for a second. I mean, like OSHA or anything else, or the courts, the NLRB is a state agency, and we cannot and have not relied, and we cannot rely on a state agency to defend our interests. They can only be used. I'm not saying we should never use them, but those of us on this blog would not say we should never use them. It depends on the situation. But we cannot rely on the courts or a state agency like that to protect our interests and defend our interests. In fact, I remember some time ago there was a struggle between two cities, Arlington, Texas and Ypsilanti, Michigan, over a GM plant because of the jobs it would bring. I can't remember whether it was going to close and move to Arlington or whether it was going to be built in Arlington or Ypsilanti. I can't remember exactly. But there was a competition between the two communities for who could offer GM the best. They basically blackmailed the communities, who can give them free land, low taxes and what have you. And I think it was Ypsilanti that brought a lawsuit to try and stop them from moving. The judge said you can't tell a corporation, you can't tell capitalists what to do with their money, and if Arlington won the deal, I guess in Texas they offered lower wages and fewer impediments to profit taking. And from what I recall, they shut the plant down anyway. But the thing is, you can't rely on the courts to protect workers against the capitalist interests. They're their courts. So while it's a good start, like we said in the previous, as a reflection of their anger, while we said in the previous video and in the article about 3 or 4 days ago, the way to win this struggle is through our own independence, workers' independence, independent of both of the political parties of big business, the Democrats and Republicans, by strengthening and building a movement to fight back. And if you take the Boeing workers, like the BART workers down here, they're in a very powerful economic position. Aircraft manufacture is a considerable industrial section of US society. I don't know what the percentage of GDP is involved in aircraft manufacture, but they're in an economically powerful position. And as we said before, they should link up with the Kshama Sawant campaign. There must be a lot of young people in that campaign that got that woman elected, to the only socialist council member in the United States at the moment. She's called for the occupation of the plants, or what she actually called for was the takeover of the plants by Boeing workers and to be run on a democratic basis, something along those lines. She's the only politician that's put anything forward as an alternative to just capitulation, which is what the union leadership does. And so that on the one hand. Also, the fact that there's rumblings below, even though the NLRB filings are reflections of this rumblings, but these rumblings should turn into something more concrete. The building, in fact, what should actually happen is, what should actually happen is those brothers and sisters that are leading this struggle there with regard to the NLRB should immediately call a meeting and form a caucus within that local up there, or within that lodge up there, and form a anti-austerity, a fighting caucus aimed to transform the union and change the direction of the union and change the leadership of the union as part of that process, to turn it into a fighting organisation to defend not just defend our gains, but make progress. So that's the first step, and that once you have an organised caucus, then that can reach out to the SOAT campaign. It can reach out to the anti-foreclosure movement, the women's movement, where there's massive assaults on women and women's rights, immigrant rights, the people of colour communities, which are being savaged by the austerity agenda, the capitalist offensive. So that, I think, is what would be a good step to form a caucus immediately, call a meeting of those dissenters within the IAM lodge up there, call a meeting to do that, then call a wider meeting and invite all anti-austerity fighters and the SOAT campaign activists into that meeting, or meet with them and prepare a meeting of that nature, a wider meeting. Reach out to the rest of the labour movement, the dissenters within the labour movement, as there's many, and there are many, as we pointed out in the previous video and in the articles we put on our blog. And then eventually, as we said, the forming of a national united mass action movement that can defend workers wherever we're under attack, wherever we're in unions, no matter what issue it's about. Whether, as I said before, whether it's about a post office or whether it's about an attack on wage workers, poor workers, immigrant workers, any workers. This is something that we're lacking. The last thing I just want to say in this little contribution, and I hope that I'm getting better at it, we've had a considerable number of views in the previous one, and that's encouraging for us. But if anybody wants to send stuff in, please, questions in for us, please do that. It will help us think, the 3 or 4 of us that are discussing issues here around this. And the last thing I wanted to end on was the question of the team concept. Many union activists or people that are just coming into activity will say to me, well, the union leaders are corrupt, or they take bribes, or they're rotten, or they're thieving, or all of these things. And that really for us is not the issue. The issue is that they are ideologically bankrupt. They support the market, they support capitalism, they support the right of the boss to make profits. And this issue is about profits, although they're never mentioned. The issue is, what's made an issue is our wages, our benefits, our pensions, not their profits. This is what this is all about, making us more competitive, so we can compete with Vietnamese workers, Chinese workers, and what have you. So I think it's important for us to raise this question, make it more publicly known that their strategy and tactics flows from their belief, their worldview, and their support of the team concept, that they believe that the employers, the trade union leadership's view is the bosses and workers have the same economic interests. So, and that we're on the same team. It's called the team concept. It goes under many different names. And workplace committees, all sorts of different names. And so we need to name this what it is, because it's all of the strategy and tactics that we see, that if we find so distasteful, and the betrayals flow from this worldview. You can't mobilize the members, and you can't mobilize the working class as a whole against the bosses if we believe the bosses are on the same team. It's not possible. In fact, what it does is it throws us into competition with other workers in other industries, in other regions, in other states, in other countries. And we see they were shooting Cambodian workers here that are fighting just last week, that were fighting for, they shot 4 workers, they were fighting for a higher minimum wage. They're making apparel that they sell to European and American corporations. The Walmart heirs, the 4 people or 5 people, the heirs of the Walmart, they have more wealth than 100 million Americans. These people are the people we're up against. So the team concept has to be undermined, has to be openly condemned. And so let's see what happens up in up in Washington in the event, in the aftermath of this vote, and there seems to be there's some rumblings here, and these are just some suggestions and some thoughts that myself and a couple of others that chat about this around our blog, these are some of the suggestions and thoughts we've had on it. Thanks a lot.